After watching this video, you should hopefully know exactly how to develop your promising wonder kid into a world-class monster. At the end of the video, I will share the one thing that I think is overlooked by all managers when it comes to developing your young players. So the most important thing I think I've picked up from the research I've been doing from this video is that we need to categorize the development of young players into two separate piles. One being the under 18s and one being the over 18s pile, right? And generally the advice seems to be that under 18s develop most from training and over 18 players develop most from game time. That is super important to remember. So the first place we need to look for both our over 18s and our under 18s is at our facilities. Now if you head on over to finances in the side menu and then go to the right hand side, make board request, you'll see we've got a drop down menu. Now this is where we can request from our board to upgrade our facilities, our youth facilities, our junior coaching and our youth recruitment. Now not all clubs are going to have these requests, because don't forget these are requests. You're asking your board to implement these changes. They're not all going to be accepted, right? But the best you can do is make these requests on a regular basis, as regular as you can. I mean, they'll be grayed out if you try and do it too much. You're not going to be able to do it, right? With the end goal being having the best of each of these four facilities that you can have. Now you can see here in my Watford Wonderkids save, I've actually made all the requests already. So when I go to select request, training facilities upgrade, for example, it's not there because I've already requested it, right? I'm already all over it. But essentially what you do is just go down to each one of these and just request to upgrade each one of those things, right? As it stands, these four facilities in your club could be anywhere from poor standard / basic to state-of-the-art / excellent, right? Obviously you want them to be state-of-the-art / excellent, but you need in some cases to upgrade them to that point. This will help your Wonder Kids develop. Obviously, your players need the best facilities to become the best they can be. It's so important. Make sure you're all over it. Okay, so as well as facilities, your players are going to need coaches, right? If they want to become the best players they can possibly be, they need top facilities and top coaches. So if you head on over to training on the side menu and then head to coaches on the middle menu, is it called? You can then see your coach assignments, right? Your aim as a manager who wants to develop their young players the best you possibly can is to get 5 stars on each of these disciplines. So defending technical, defending tactical, goalkeeper shot stopping, goalkeeper handling and distribution, etc, etc. Or as close to 5 stars as you possibly can. It's not always going to be possible. In fact, it's very difficult in all but like the very richest of clubs. How do we do that? Well, let me talk you through it if you're not aware. Head to edit coaching assignments in the top corner of the screen here. That allows you to select each coach and change what that coach is focusing on, right? He can focus on one thing, which I would generally advise if possible, or he can focus on a multitude of things, right? Generally what you want to do is get your best coaches training the thing that they're best at and not training anything else. It's not always going to be possible at every single club because some clubs won't let you have that many coaches, right? But the end goal, again, is to get 5 stars or as close to 5 stars as you can on the bottom here. Now you can see that I haven't got 5 stars on any of mine, right? The closest I've got is 4.5 stars here. So let's look at Alex Brunner, my goalkeeping coach, to see what makes him so special and why has he got 4.5 stars, right? Well, straight away we can see he's great at goalkeeping coaching. He's got 18 for goalkeeping distribution, 18 for goalkeeping handling, and 18 for goalkeeping shot stopping. But crucially, highlighted here as well, you could see he's 15 or above in determination, level of discipline, and motivation. For every single one of your coaches, and I cannot stress this highly enough, you need to try and get at least 15 on all of those attributes. I call them the Holy Trinity. It's determination, level of discipline, and motivating. And that's on top of the technical discipline that they will need for the specific thing that they are training. In this case, for Alex Brunner, that being one of the goalkeeping disciplines, right? Now, if we head back to the edit coach assignment screen, it gives us an indicator as to what specific attributes your coach will need to be good at that specific discipline, right? So we're hovering over Alex Brunner here, and we're hovering over goalkeeping, and we're hovering over goalkeeping handling. We can see here highlighted in the bottom corner of the screen, goalkeeper handling, goalkeeping distribution, determination, level of discipline, and motivation all highlighted. If I skip my cursor over now to defending tactical, we see some new things highlighted. Defensive coaching, tactical coaching, as well as, again, determination, level of discipline, and motivation. Again, move that across to, say, attacking tactical, and we need an attacking coach with tactical ability, as well as, again, the holy trinity of determination, level of discipline, and motivation. So how do we do that? You head to your staff screen on the side menu, then you go to staff search on the top menu. This is where I would personally put in a filter for the holy trinity. So click edit search, click determination, level of discipline, and motivation. Maybe put it around 12, right? Because it is hard to find someone who is 15 on absolutely everything. But let's put it to 15 just for argument's sake. And then hit OK, right? Now here I've included interested people in the first team. You could include Watford staff as well if you want. And here we're viewing the technical attributes, right? So if we knew that we needed an attacking and a tactical coach, right, with those aptitudes, we know now that everyone on this list has the Holy Trinity. We could then sort by attacking, and we can see that this guy here, Brian Dean, actually has tactical coaching discipline of 13 out of 20 and attacking coaching discipline of 13 out of 20 as well, which isn't bad, but I'd probably want a little bit more, right? So maybe I'd knock the Holy Trinity down to 14. And again, I don't treat this as an exact science. There might be an exact formula out there, and if you know it, drop it in the comments below. But here you can see when I've dropped the Holy Trinity down to 14, I actually get a few better technical coaches coming up in my search. James Beattie always being one that shows up, actually. Attacking 15 and technical, tactical, is only 11, right? Man and management is actually 14. But that's how you do it, right? You then go in and you offer these guys jobs and you fill up your coaches, right? Assistant managers, coaches, get them all in, get those star ratings up to get your Wonderkids world class. As a side note as well, it's something worth bearing in mind when you're setting up your manager profile. I always have that in mind when setting up my manager profile. You can see I've given myself really, really good attributes. Attacking 20, defending 20, technical 20, for example. As well as obviously the Holy Trinity, right? If you're not giving yourself the Holy Trinity of determination, motivation, and level of discipline, when you're setting up your manager profile at the start, you're doing it wrong. Because that then obviously allows me to actually have 5. Oh, I got 4.5 stars. Why is that? Oh, because it's fitness. It would allow me to have 5 stars on, I'm sure, they are possession, technical, or for example, attacking, technical, 5 stars. Easy as that. So when we're talking about staff, it's probably quite important to mention your head of youth development. If we're on our staff screen here, I don't really like this view, but you can see him. Number 2 here, purple, John Goodman, my head of youth development. And again, Football Manager will suggest the aptitudes that you want for this role. Working with youngsters being obviously very important, as well as judging player ability and judging player potential. Your head of youth development will be doing a lot of your youthy type tasks, right? So it's quite important probably to get a decent one, but it depends kind of how you play the game as to how important your head of youth development actually will be. Someone who's really important to me and the way that I play Football Manager is my assistant manager. He's absolutely crucial. Now I'll click on coaching team here because I prefer the view when you click on that, because it'll pull up my entire team, and here you can see I've got Nicky Butt as my assistant manager. Not only because of the fact that when a news item pops up, it tells me that my butt is very happy about things, which is always hilarious, but also because of the fact he has great judging player ability and fantastic judging player potential, as well as decent coaching attributes and motivation, because I like him to do my team talks. What this allows me to do is have quite accurate ability and potential reports on my squad screen. So you can see that here. I can literally sort by potential and sort by ability and have quite a high confidence that this is accurate information, because I know that my assistant manager is pretty decent at translating this sort of thing. I love my stars. Stars are great. Okay, so as mentioned before, the most important thing for an over 18 player, so that is a player that has passed his 18th birthday, funny enough, is game time. So if we look at my squad here and we go to selection info, it should give us a breakdown of how many appearances people have made. Okay, well, it hasn't because we haven't started the season. But in any normal season, you would see appearances followed by goals, assists, and average rating. Your goal as a manager who's managing a lot of youth players or players who are over 18 is to get every single player that is over 18 at least 10 starts per season. Maybe 15 would probably be a better benchmark, but 10 to 15 starts per season is absolute minimum for your over 18 player to develop. If you cannot get your over 18 player 10 games or 10 starts per season, you must consider either selling them or ideally putting them out on loan so you can have them back later when you can get them 10 games at least. So plan your squad accordingly, think about how many games and in what position your over 18 player is going to play. Actively make sure you're putting him into the starting 11 during the season for those 10 games. A really good tip for that is use the end of the season when there's not so much at stake. Maybe you've avoided relegation or maybe you've won the competition that you were going for a few games early. There's a few games there normally where you can get those young players in. If that's not the case, get them out on loan. Use affiliate clubs. If you've got a decent affiliate club, that's great. If you haven't got a decent affiliate club where you can send loan players out to, that is something you can also request from your board at board request screen, which we spoke about earlier. Head to networking, head to affiliate clubs, click on that bad boy. You then get the option to request from your board an affiliate club that will enable us to send players out on loan. Now, when you're choosing a club for your player to go out on loan or you're choosing an affiliate club for the same purpose, there are a few key things to keep in mind. Firstly, I would consider the club's league. So the club that is coming in to loan your player, what standard of football are they playing? Right, a good rule of thumb is to use the player that's going out on loans report. So we'll click on our player here who's listed for loan. We'll click on report at the top and then we can see current ability is a good Sky Bet League 1 player. So use your report to gauge where your player should be playing his football. I would then only allow teams above this who are offering good game time to loan my players, probably. Worst comes to worst, you have to accept something, right? It's better than leaving him in the under 21s playing no games. But ideally prioritize leagues that are better than his current ability suggests, but probably more crucially, teams who are offering a specific amount of playing time. If the club is coming in and offering your player fringe player status, that's not good enough. You want them to be key player, first team player, so that they're getting game time, because this is what it's all about. They're going out on loan to get game time. Now, there are some occasions where I think you can break this rule, and I've done it myself and it's worked, and that is if a team is offering a fringe player status to your player, you can go in and look at that team and kind of make your own assessment as to whether your player would get in that team, because a lot of the time, right, your player is going to be very, very good in the future and is probably better than any players, or at least is definitely going to be better than any of the players in a team like Blackpool or Fleetwood. So the chances are the manager in that team is going to recognise this and start playing your wonder kid over their 31-year-old target man 9 times out of 10, right? So it's definitely worth the risk in going with your gut on that one. Check out the team and make your own call in terms of expected game time. Next, I'd definitely consider the club's facilities, right? As mentioned earlier, facilities can go from poor, basic, below average, adequate, average, all the way up to state of the art. Obviously, you want to go as high on that scale as possible when it comes to training facilities, etc. So to do that, you just literally click on the club which is offering to loan your player, head to overview at the top and then to facilities. We can then see that Blackpool, for example, have got basic training facilities and basic youth facilities. Now you have to add that into context because every other club that comes in to loan this player might have below average youth facilities, right? So it's not a bad red flag in itself. You have to use it in context with the other teams that are coming in and offering loan opportunities for your player. Okay, so we've talked a lot about game time now, so that's over 18 players. Let's talk a little bit about training and under 18 players. Now, there are definitely crossovers on each side, right? You can get under 18 players who are definitely worth a place in your first team, and if that's the case, get them in there as soon as possible. And there are also over 18 players who need specific training, right, or who will benefit from some of the things that we're going to talk about in the under 18 section. Firstly, I want to apologize for how badly set up the development center is, right, in terms of Football Manager. What are you doing? I hate it. It's horrible. What I would always do when on the development center screen, and maybe you love it and that's great, but I don't, I would head to my under 21s and my under 18 squads separately just by clicking on the top menus here, right, and then click squad. Everything else I absolutely hate. Maybe it's just me. So here we can see our actual squad, and we can sort by ability and potential. This is the under 21s team. You can see I've got some great potential players in here. This is Watford Wonderkids. We're playing it live on Twitch. Go and give me a follow. And then we can toggle over to the under 18s just as easily and look at our squad the same way. In terms of staff, we don't have as much detail as we do for the over 18, like the first team, in terms of editing, coaching assignments, etc. But we do have a little button here at the bottom where we can toggle from the Watford under 21 staff, if you can see that, to the Watford under 18 staff just with the click of a button. And we can see that we've got a few opportunities here where we can actually fill up our coaching team with youth coaches. Now, youth coaches is probably something that people don't focus enough on, right? So we're going to talk about them a little bit. What should you focus on when looking at youth coaches, and why are they important? Now, there are actually two additional things that I would look for in my youth coaches more than I would in my first team coaches, and that is a strong personality and a very good working with youngsters attribute. So my under 18s manager here is a good case in point, for example, right? Nick Dazovic, the Canadian under 18s manager for my Watford Wonderkids team, has a model citizen personality. You can see that on the right hand side there. Now, personalities are so underrated by so many Football Manager players. It's one of the key things that will drive the success of your players and your coaches. Players who have positive personalities will develop better than players who have negative personalities, and we'll speak about that in a little bit when it comes to mentoring. But the same is true for your coaches. Coaches with better personalities will coach your Wonderkids better than coaches with negative personalities. Obviously, now personalities is an exact science. There's a top and there's a bottom. The positive ones that you want to look for in order are model citizen, professional, iron-willed. I've never seen that one, to be honest with you. I've read that on the internet. Model professional, then resolute, and then driven. Okay? These are positive personalities which help if you're a player, and most importantly, as we're talking about now, if you're a youth coach or just a coach in general. So don't neglect your development center. Don't neglect your under 21s and your under 18s team. Get them sorted in terms of age categories. You can see my under 18s here is actually full of under 18s. There's one 18-year-old. And my under 21s is actually full of under 21s. There's actually one 21-year-old. He needs to go. He's been for sale for ages. Don't talk to me about Matt Pollock. Okay, so next we're going to speak about mentoring. Now, if you've never done mentoring before, you could do a whole video probably on mentoring itself. I'm just going to briefly touch on it here. These are all my mentoring groups set up already. It won't look like this for you, right? It'll look blank for you. What you can really do really quickly, if you haven't got time to look into mentoring as a whole, is just click the Ask Assistant to Assign button on the side here. Click yes and confirm, and then he will set up at least one mentoring group for you. But again, you'll find this screen in training on the left-hand side menu, then mentoring on the top menu. And if you get a little bit more advanced, you might end up with something looking a little bit like this. The main part of the screen, which might look a bit confusing for you, and I apologize for that you need to focus on are personality, which is here, and estimated influence / effect from group. Now, if I were to explain how it works, it would very simply sound a little something like this. You want to get senior players with positive personalities in each mentoring group to mentor younger players with less positive personalities in order to have a good effect on both senior and non-senior players. Does that make sense? So for example, in the top group here, I've got Ismail Sarr, who is my most senior player because we've literally sacked the whole team apart from Sarr and brought in Wonderkids. He's 25-year-old and he's got a fairly ambitious personality, right? So he's got a significant influence on this top group. Underneath, we got Erin Balanta, who I believe is named after a patron, www.patreon.com/FMWONDERKIDS, if you want to get your name in the game. He's got a balanced personality, 19 years old, has light influence on the group, but is getting an average effect from the group, right? So SAR's positive personality is affecting Erin Belanta in an averagely positively kind of way, right? Now, if you were to get a slightly more senior player with a better personality, so say model citizen Wayne Rooney or something as a mentor, who was mentoring, say, a light-hearted personality Garnacho, you would probably see a significant effect on Garnacho and a significant influence from Wayne Rooney, right? So you can do all of this manually by adding and removing players and creating and removing groups, right? By using these two selection options here. Okay, so next up we're talking about individual and positioning training. Jamie Cooper-Dunn here is a centre midfielder, but you can see he's got some random positions that the game has just thrown up at him, like right back, defensive midfield, attacking midfield left, but then not able to play midfield left or wing back left. And he's also right-footed, so it makes absolutely no sense at all. So it really is a good idea to get a hold of your under-18s and your under-21s as soon as possible and start moulding them into the player that they look like they're going to be most useful as when they grow older. So for a really quick glance, I think John Cooper-Dunn looks like he's going to be a good centre midfielder. He's got good technique, great work rate, good natural fitness, for example, right? But he lacks finishing and jumping reach. So centre midfield, perfect. And I think Football Manager have got that spot on. So here I've got him individually training as a deep-lying playmaker defend, which is part of my first team tactic, right? So it's quite important, I think personally, to train your youngsters into a position and role that they will be playing in the first team when they get to the first team. Additional focus, again, have it on whatever you want your particular player to focus on, or whatever you want, or whatever your particular tactic needs for them to thrive. For example, here we've gone for ball control, and that encompasses dribbling, first touch, technique, tackling, and passing. Now, it's important to note that technically, under-18s will develop more than they will develop mentally, right? Mentality is something that players will develop more in a later stage of their career. So I personally like to beast the technical side of things when it comes, especially to under-18s and training. Now, in terms of intensity level, I think you have to have this bespoke for each player. So for example, here, Jamie Cooper-Dunn, he's not going to be playing any first team football for me, so the match load is quite low. He's also got an overall low risk of injury, therefore I'll probably put him on double intensity. Now, if he was good enough to be playing in the first team, playing some games in the first team, and maybe his overall risk of injury was medium to high, you would then drop that down, right? Really important not to get your young players injured, because that obviously clearly will stop them developing in their tracks. Now, from the research I've done on the internet, there seems to be a huge debate in the community as to how much team training actually affects A, output of your first team, and B, development of your players' attributes. So I'm not going to talk too much about team training other than to say I personally never use it and I always get my assistant to do it. And I don't really personally see any evidence for it affecting young players' development at any kind of significant rate at all. So basically, we're not going to talk about it. Now, there's one thing that I think is overlooked massively when it comes to developing players, specifically your young players, into world-class players, and that is overall happiness. So if we head onto our dynamic screen here on the left-hand side, and then to happiness at the top menu, we can see a really pretty display of the mood of the squad. This can affect performances more than anything, right? Wins, losses, draws. Happiness can play a huge part in that, right? But it can also play a huge part in a player's development. If they're not happy, they're not going to develop as well as a player who is very happy. And a great way to keep players happy and to keep them motivated is by using praise and by using criticism. And the best way I find to use praise and criticism is when my staff give me the feedback via the inbox. We receive a super handy weekly, and you could probably change the frequency of it, training week in review email from our assistant manager. Here he's telling me that Gavin Bazunu, my Wonderkid goalkeeper, has been training fantastically. He's actually got a 9.25 out of 10 this week. Whereas Yassir Aspria has been training negatively at a very small 6.15. So I would always praise Bazunu here every single week, and probably once a month I would criticize the worst trainer, right? This isn't an exact science, and I always think it's good to focus more on positives than it is on negatives. So at a ratio of 4 to 1, I will always praise my best trainer and criticize my worst trainer every single week. Now, that's not the only way you can praise someone. You can go to, again, selection info here. You can look at the last 5 games of your players, and you can praise, for example, Moukoko here. And don't ask me how we got Moukoko at Watford. We could praise for his actual performance in games. We just had to speak about after right-clicking on his name, and then praise player. Oh, it says we can only praise his conduct. What's going on? Maybe it's because we're in pre-season. You can definitely do it, trust me. And if you can't, what the hell? Like, you definitely used to be able to do it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Stick with these rules and you will develop your Wonderkids into world-class players. If you've liked it, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Love you loads. See you. Bye. Love you loads. What?